up here, please.
And
Steve?
I missed some stuff, but I still made it. You know, and
Before we start our council meeting tonight, we're going to do something a little different because Madeline has an appointment that she has to be at. And so I promised her if she came early that we would do this early. So it's the best part of my job when I get to brag on the city of Vienna. And so I'd like to introduce to you some of the members of our park board. So Steve, if you'd introduce these men, please.
Chuck Knopfinger, our president, Tim Roberts, our secretary, and Jack Mathers, who's also the city forester.
And of course, Steve's our parks director. And this week I received a letter that I'm very proud to share with you all. It says, congratulations. After a long 6 weeks of nominations and polling for the best of the Mid-Ohio Valley, the Mid-Ohio Valley proved once again that we take our love for all things local very seriously. With over 20,000 nominations and over 17,000 votes across almost 100 categories, the best of the Mid-Ohio Valley successfully broke the Mid-Ohio Valley Internet as residents and tourists alike celebrated all that our beautiful region has to offer. With that much attention and online traffic, competition was surely steep, but you sure have a lot of fans because you climbed your way to the very top of not only one, but 2 categories. And so it's my pleasure to present to you all this evening the best of the best. And this award is presented to McDonough Park for being named the #1 best local hiking trail in the entire Mid-Ohio Valley. And this is the one that I'm very proud of. The Best of the Mid-Ohio Valley 2019 award winner was awarded to Jackson Park for being named the #1 best local playground. And so Steve, congratulations. To the park board, thank you all for all the hard work you do. It is really great to get recognition and to be named the best of the Mid-Ohio Valley with 17,000 votes. Unbelievable job, fellas. So, anyway, Madeline, thank you for coming early. All right, you can go to your dinner now.
Thanks for coming, Madeline.
I'll call and get the full story on tonight. Don't leave anything out.
There you go. Would you all please stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Councilman Rogers.
Let us pray. Our God, our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day, for all the blessings you give to each of us here tonight. We pray that you'll be with us and guide us as we go about the business of the city. We continue to pray for those serving the armed forces abroad and serving in harm's way. Be with them, guard them, protect them. These things we pray in Christ's name, and amen.
Amen. Councilman Bibby, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item this evening will be the public forum. We have 2 people that have signed up to speak, so Kim, you will be first.
Can I turn this on? Can I use the audio or the visual? Not really sure how it works. Okay, I appreciate that. I don't see Russ here tonight, so.
Russ is right there.
I meant, I'm sorry, Adam.
They look a lot alike.
Yeah.
If you doubled them.
Cool. Thank you. Good evening. My name's Kim Williams. I live on 49th Street in Vienna. First of all, I wanted to thank the mayor and for actually we got to some transparency on the insurance, and I really appreciate that. And as I mentioned last time, Mr. Swindelman was here, and he gave a really good presentation. I think we all gained a lot of knowledge from that. I was very disappointed in the fact that it was an 8:30 meeting on a Tuesday, and then we turned around on Thursday, just 2 days later, and voted. I don't think that left ample time for a lot of people to really digest that information. I know that 2 council members could not be there for that meeting. So I felt like that was a little bit rushed, but I do appreciate the transparency. So it's now that the budget has been approved, and I just want council to consider something, because we've talked a lot about wages and benefits, a total compensation package, and I feel that work needs to get started not in January, especially because the insurance, which is such a big component of that. There's so many different things that could have been done to help change the insurance that weren't done because they were just at the last minute, the 11th hour, and you had to make a decision and you approved the budget, and I understand that because it has to be done by the end of March. So one of the other things that I suggested was a work study, and I hope this year that will really be considered. I know Parkersburg did one. I think we want to make sure that we pay our employees what's competitive, okay? And what's, it's not about shortchanging anybody. It's about being competitive, looking at the whole package, the benefit package plus the wages. And, you looked at one part of the equation this time with the insurance, and we don't know about the wages yet. And I just made a little chart on my computer before I came today, and just to kind of put it in perspective, in the 16-17 budget, you had revenue. On the revenue side, it was a little over $11 million, and wages and benefits were $4,326,000, which was about 39% of the budget. And in 17-18, revenue was down to $9 million, a little over $9 million. Wages and benefits were $4,725,000, or 52% of the total budget. And in 18-19, revenue was up a little bit. It was $9,176,000. Wages and benefits were up as well, over $5 million, and that was 55% of the budget. So all I'm saying is that to look at those things so we can better plan. If we're not going to do a work study, then we kind of don't really know. We say we pay our employees too low. Maybe we do pay some of them too low. Maybe we don't. Maybe we pay some too high. I don't know. Nobody knows without a wage study being done. And then once again, when we go on the benefit side, when we start talking about health insurance, there are things that can be done. And one of the biggest things about that is you guys have maintained the same goal of that, the same plan goal of $1,250 or $2,500 out of pocket, depending on if it's an individual or a family. There's things that can be done about that, and I know Mr. Conley was here and he talked about loading that deductible in a different way. That was one thing. But I'm just suggesting that not wait until January to have these conversations. They need to start now, because, I know last time it was brought up that the B&O tax could disappear. Who knows if that's going to happen? The state legislature gave everybody a pass on getting rid of 1%, but there are a lot of factors. And so if at least if we're going to look at these things, we might be in a better position if something like that happens. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Kim, I'd like to explain something to you.
Sure.
And everyone here for that matter. This conversation that we've had about the B&O tax is absolutely not true at all. And let me clarify that for you. It's not a B&O tax, it's a B&I tax. It's the business inventory tax that's being discussed. The business inventory tax is what the governor would like to get rid of. Mm-hmm. That is the tax that is placed on all businesses for the materials that they store in their warehouses, the equipment that they invest in. West Virginia is only one of 5 states, I believe 5, that has that tax. There is no federal tax. It's the state. It's done at the state level. And the discussion there was that if the business inventory tax is removed, that it will be made whole by the state. So counties like us will not lose the dollars that we have or that come in.
The B&O tax is not being discussed at all. It is a totally separate tax. The B&O tax is the tax that the municipality levies on a business doing or making sales within the city limits. Okay? There is not any discussion whatsoever to do anything to the B&O tax. It's the B&I tax, business inventory. So I just want to clear that up because it's been discussed several times and it's a wordage thing. There is no discussion on B&O. It's B&I, business
Okay.
inventory.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I pay it because I
Okay.
have a
Yes,
business and
I'm
it's,
sure you do.
it's significant. So
Yes, and some of the large companies that are here pay a lot of money to do it. And what it does is a lot of companies that want to come to our state look at it and say, oh, wow, I'm not really interested in paying taxes on the materials that I store in order to do my business. And so it's a disincentive for new businesses to come. And I know that this is one of the things that Senator Mike Azinger has pushed for is to get that off the books. And the governor is also in agreement with that. So the bill failed this year, but I'm sure that there'll be more discussion about it. B&I, business inventory, not business and occupation.
right. Well, I
Okay.
appreciate you clarifying that. So.
Well, I just, it's
I
been
know
up
it's
a
been
couple
brought
times.
up, but
yeah.
it's the first time I brought it up because
Yeah.
it's it's been brought up here. It was brought up last time, but
Sure. No,
it,
thank
it
you.
needs clarification.
Thank
but
you.
I appreciate that.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
I have, Kim, also a brief comment about your discussion on the total compensation plan for City of Vienna. You know, when we're going through this process, you're talking about these things being rushed and not being considered. I can't agree with what you're saying. When we looked at the average compensation with the City of Vienna, also the average compensation for the health insurance plan that we have, which is about $7 an hour per employee is what it breaks down to. In addition to that, you know, one of the other things that with the City of Vienna, we don't have, for example, the public employee retirement system. We have more like a 401k. So Wood County, Parkersburg, and our police pension's very good, but our city employees don't enjoy that benefit of a guaranteed pension. So when you talk about a wage study, when you're talking about the total compensation for the city employees in Vienna, you know, I think we are pretty well balanced, and I think that I just have to say that you know, I felt very comfortable in continuing the way that we compensate our employees as far as the you know, the decision that was made several years ago to the HRA. And then if the city employees continue to, you know, work with the wellness programs that we have, virtual medicine, the things that they can do to help control our risk pool and our cost, you know, I think that the return on investment that we get from our city employees and the compensation that they get is certainly on par. And also with, you know, there's trade-offs everywhere. Like I said, them not being in a guaranteed pension plan is a big deal. And we're not going to change that because we can't afford it, okay?
Well, I understand that.
Right, so.
But once again, transparency, because we don't know.
Well, I don't agree with that either, Kim. I don't want to interrupt you, but there's not this issue with transparency. I've been on council now. This was my third budget, okay? And all those numbers are available. And I think this transparency issue that you and others have raised has been kind of a red herring, quite frankly. So we'll just have to disagree on that.
We will,
exactly.
Because I know
we will.
I have all of Parkersburg's numbers, and I know what their employees make. So, and that would be nice to have Vienna's.
What numbers are you looking for?
Wages. That's what I'm talking about.
I think those are public record.
Well, they're not online. I've not asked for them by the city, but I will.
Okay. Well, in fact, I
but
probably could go out to my car and give you a copy, and I'm happy to be because I looked at those pretty carefully. Yeah. But did you ask for them?
I've been looking online.
Did you ask for them?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, if you asked for them, I'm sure you would get them.
Okay, because normally when I have to ask for things around here, or anybody does, it's a FOIA situation, and I don't like that because I don't want to be an adverse, you know. It's not necessary.
Well, I agree, and I think some of the like I said, it's available to you. I'm pretty sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Nonamaker.
My name's Darren Onamaker. I live at 1409 31st Street in Vienna. I'm going to sound like a broken record. we've got a leash law here in Vienna for dogs and cats. Over where I live, there's at least 6 or 7 cats that run loose all the time. One has at least 2 litters of kittens a year under my building, along with the groundhogs. But what I'm getting at now is, it's spring of the year. Everybody wants to start putting their gardens in and planting flowers. We can't do that over where I live. We've got persons close to us that feeds the deer every day. And I'd like to see the city of Vienna bring an ordinance into the city of Vienna that if you're within the city limits, you cannot feed the deer. I'd like to see that happen. I mean, why go to and the money of putting a garden in and planting flowers when you can't have them? That's all I've got to say.
Okay, thank you, bud. I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for March the 28th, 2019. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council are present with the exception of Mr. Elam and Mr. Conley. Having a quorum, we will proceed. The minutes from the special council meeting held on March the 19th, 2019 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any objections? Excuse me, are there any corrections? If there are no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. The report of the treasurer will be given at the first regular session in April. We have no unfinished business on our agenda this evening. Our first item this evening under new business is a resolution proclaiming April 2019 as Fair Housing Month. Tony Tiano is with us this evening. Tony, any comments on the Fair Housing Month?
Very springy.
Thank you.
You're
I'm
welcome.
hoping it stays that
Yeah,
way.
me too. I wore my springy tie.
There we go. The only comment is just that this isn't really anything new. Fair housing law has been in existence for over 50 years, and it's just to recognize that, you know, equal housing access to individuals, whether it's that they're renting or buying a house or whatever, it's part of the law, and it's encouraged. The HUD office encourages us to declare it locally.
Okay, thank you. I'll read the resolution. Whereas April marks the anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which sought to eliminate discrimination in housing opportunities and to affirmatively further housing choices for all Americans. And whereas the ongoing struggle for dignity and housing opportunity for all is not the exclusive province of the federal government. And whereas vigorous local efforts to combat discrimination can be an effective, if not more so, than federal efforts. And whereas illegal barriers to equal opportunity in housing, no matter how subtle, diminish the rights of all. Now therefore be it resolved that the pursuit of the shared goal and responsibility of providing equal housing opportunities for all men and women, the city of Vienna, West Virginia, does hereby join in the national celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act by proclaiming April 2019 as Fair Housing Month, and encourages all agencies, institutions, and individuals, public and private, in the city of Vienna, West Virginia, to abide by the letter and the spirit of the Fair Housing Law. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution proclaiming April 2019 as Fair Housing Month.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve April, the proclamation proclaiming April as Fair Housing Month. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Tony, thank you for your work. The second item on our agenda this evening is a resolution adopting supplemental rules for the regulation of the Vienna City Park System, including the community building and swimming pool located in Jackson Park. Mr. Black is here. He's our Parks Director, and most of our Park Board was here earlier. They all have had a hand in these changes. Steve, would you like to give us an overview, please?
As you all are aware, we have shelters, community building, the pool, things like that that we rent to the general public. The purpose is for families, for good times, get-togethers, things of that nature. We also, primarily the community building, will rent it out to schools, churches, booster organizations within schools, Veterans Administration, any nonprofit organization under IRS is designated as a 501c3 entity. Those nonprofit organizations can, have fundraising events. The purpose of this is to preclude businesses, individuals from doing the same thing. We have an episode, it's coming up in April, where a lady who has a daycare is doing a fundraising event because we didn't have this in place. So we'll deal with it this time. But charging $10 per child, $5 for each additional for an Easter egg hunt, and it's profit for her own business. And it is not a nonprofit. So these are the things that, will we catch every single one? Well, we're going to do our best. But the purpose was not for these things to happen. And recently we've had a few other instances, so this should help curb that.
Any questions from council for Steve on the changes that you?
This came to my attention, Mayor, in terms of the individual, and I don't think there was any, from my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but this person had contacted the city, made the appropriate arrangements, and then advertised the event, and had quite a significant response, and then got some feedback from the city, oh, wait a minute, we're not sure we're going to do this, and then the city, I think correctly agreed, said, well, we'll go ahead and do this because you've already relied on us,
Right.
but then we need to take it up. So as I understand, the issue is the city does not want to participate or make public facilities available other than to nonprofits, that if somebody is going to do a for-profit event, that the city facilities are not available. And if that's in fact what we're talking about, what's the rationale? And I'm not for or against it. I just want to understand.
Actually, my understanding is years ago, this was a decision from the park board, and it's been abided by fairly well. However, not consistently. If somebody knew somebody, that's not the point. It's family, it's get-togethers, things of that nature. It's not for sale to benefit an individual or business.
The only comment that I have, Jim, is this is a recommendation from the park board to set the guidelines because they, set the policies for all of the facilities that we have here. This is not technically a city issue. Once we adopt this rule change, then the rules will be in place. But it is the recommendation of the park board. Am I saying that correctly, Steve?
Yes, and actually, when I contacted the former parks director, he said it was voted on years ago at a park board meeting and would probably be in the minutes somewhere. Well, couldn't find any of that.
I mean, I get that, in terms of this is the way we've done it. So what's the rationale? And again, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I just want to understand before I vote on this. So if we're saying, so for example, if we got if we have a Vienna small business who's trying to get established, and they say, I want to do a fundraiser, I'd like to do, and let's take this specific example, I'd like to do an Easter egg hunt at Spencer Park on a day that's available in order to promote my business and see if I can draw people in. And so what's the policy argument one way or the other why we should, why would we enable a not not-for-profit entity to do it, and then rule out that somebody who, simply because they're in our community for a profit for a business, to say, no, it's not available to you?
Well, in this particular example, I've actually had
Generally, okay, I'm just using it as an example, but I want to understand it globally.
Well, what has happened recently, I've had 3 phone calls. Why is the city of Vienna charging for events? When the family fun weekends, when the various activities are free. Events and things like that at the senior center are free. So why is Vienna charging for that? Well, it's not the city of Vienna. And was it made clear when the arrangement was made that this is what was going to happen? No.
Well, so, and this is where I want to rely on all your years in service to the city of Vienna, mayor, everybody. So is this the correct policy for the city? Because of, again, we don't want to, does it in essence discriminate against one group or another, or here the city doesn't charge for our free events? I mean, that's what I'm trying to understand. Is,
Well, let me give you the other thing that you have to consider in general. Typically, when these groups come, they do not have a business license. So they are actively selling a product or a service without having a valid business license. It's not fair to all the other businesses that are in town for the city to allow them to use city services or facilities if they don't have a business license. And so I know that's part of the reasoning for that is these are not typically established businesses. These are, as you said, startups or whatever, but they've not came to the city to get a business license, and that creates an issue.
And it doesn't happen that often, but I just want to not have to deal with these things. Keep it consistent the way it was intended years ago and just move forward.
I think I'd like to table this. I mean, I'm not persuaded by what either of you have said, that it's in the best interest of the city of Vienna. We have small businesses. Kim has businesses here. I do. And why? I don't understand the distinction. And I can understand you could have certain requirements that you do have to be an established business. You do need to meet certain criteria. But to draw a line to say that somebody simply, if you're a 501c3 or you're a nonprofit, that the city of Vienna is available to you, but if you're a city of Vienna small business, it's not available to you. I'd like to think through that a little bit more before we adopt this resolution, quite frankly.
Steve,
and I'm
are
coming
these-
from
are-
as a small business person. I mean, I've never tried to use or even necessarily care, but but like I said, this issue came to me, to my attention, and my understanding is this young person that's trying to facilitate this, and I don't have all the facts, and that's why I'm saying. But you know, to me, it seems to me like we're drawing kind of an arbitrary line, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I'm saying that based on what I've heard tonight, I'm not ready to, and we can certainly vote. I mean, if somebody wants to motion second, that's fine, but I can't support this tonight.
Mr. Skogstad, please, you have a comment?
Maybe I can help with at least the policy distinction. One of the differences between a nonprofit and a for-profit entity, obviously, is their purpose. The reason for making the distinction between and allowing nonprofit entities to participate is generally they're there not for the benefit of making money, but for the benefit of some public activity or group or what have you. And a for-profit entity, of course, is there to make money. So the distinction between the two is, while one is to generally benefit the public and the other generally benefits the business, the reason the distinction is drawn is you're essentially using public goods or public facilities and so forth in order to make a profit. So if I have a consignment shop, one of the things that I could do is, and I just picked that because consignment's in the resolution, is I could rent one of our shelters every weekend for the next however long and essentially run a satellite operation out of the city park or the gazebo or whatever, which I don't think is what the intent of using public property, or at least I think is a distinction in using public property. So there's that public property for private gain. Now, I don't think it precludes some of the things that you're saying, which is, can a business sponsor an event and, you know, and have their name, you know, put on the event. I don't think that these rules would take that out. So if law offices of Jim Leach wanted to sponsor an Easter egg hunt and any of the proceeds were to go to a charity or whatever, I think that would probably be fine. But if Jim Leach I don't know what Miss Williams is, so I'm not going to pick on her business. But if Miss Williams wanted to set up,
we know it's like to be in small business.
yeah, and if they want to set up a gazebo where Jim decides that it's a lovely sunny day, I'm going to do all of my consulting with my clients in the gazebo. I mean, I think that defeats the purpose of having the property available to the general public for a nonprofit use.
So let me ask this question. For example, we just had a discussion about the community building, excuse me, the rental charges for that. There's no limitation as far as who rents the community building. So are we saying, and again, I'm just trying to understand. So for example, you can rent the community building in Vienna for any purpose by any entity by signing the agreement, paying the fee, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, but then we have, so for example, this is Spencer Park. So that is not available. You can't for rent Spencer Park.
Well,
or
community
can you? I don't know.
building, same thing. I mean, what you're asking me is, can anybody rent it? Yes. Can they rent it for like Russ, the example he used, a consignment sale or something like that? No. That's.
So for example, you couldn't rent the community building to have a flea market.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and I'm fine with that. I mean, like I said, that's what I'm trying to understand is there some parameter that's applied evenly to everybody?
Unless the flea market was for a charitable event, because we don't want to stop.
Nonprofit.
Yeah, we don't want to stop people from having spaghetti dinners for the Boy Scouts or pancake breakfast for the civic.
Where people want to do something and they're donating the money to a specific organization.
And there's been a lot of inquiries like for garage sales, people wanting to use that community building to take their stuff. They don't have room at home, have it there for a garage sale, for personal gain.
Okay, and that's what I was trying to, because I've never, this just kind of popped up, and so I'm persuaded by that logic that this is the right approach, because I agree. I mean, I think if you're doing the community building for your family reunion, fine. If you're trying to conduct, I get that. Okay, so
One
I'm
thing
good.
we also get, we get a lot of requests for coming in and running the community building and the facilities from people that are outside of Vienna. We get a lot of Parkersburg people and the county people that come. One thing is because our prices have been reasonable in the past,
And still are.
And still are. So we get a lot of outside people coming in also for renting the facilities. Not just Vienna people or Vienna business people or,
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Bibby, I'm sorry.
No, the discussion
I went right to
answered-
Russ.
Yeah.
The discussion answered my question.
All
so
right,
I'm
fine.
good.
And one more thing on that, a lot of people will rent it from year to year. If they have a family reunion and they have it at the community building, I mean, it's constantly booked. I mean, they are already booked out for the community building on the weekends, clear through. Because a lot of people do have a certain, thing going one year, and they'll, as soon as they're able to book it, they book it for the following year. So we have constant, a lot of the same people, that will rent.
Okay. Any further discussion? Then I'll entertain a motion for the resolution adopting supplemental rules for the regulation of the Vienna City Park System, including the community building and swimming pool located in Jackson Park.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution for the supplemental rules. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Steve, thank you. Russ, thank you. I know you had a lot of input on that. Jim, thank you for the discussion. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Are there any council comments this evening?
Let's go home.
Okay, I have one quick announcement. Actually, I have two. I lied. The next council meeting will be a regular council session scheduled for April the 11th, 2019 at 7 p.m. And the comment that I would like to make, it's just an update on the Aramet situation. I spoke with Aramet earlier this week, They have started construction on the sound deadening equipment. Their projected date for the actual operation to be in place is the first week of June. So I know that seems like a long way away, but it's really 8 weeks, and so they are doing everything they can to get this done as quickly as possible. And so hopefully the first week of June, it will get much quieter. So having said that, I will keep you posted as soon as I get an update from them. But that was as of this Monday. So with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you.